Football, then and now, a fun look at football nostalgia and the modern game intertwined. Join us. This is Football, then and now, episode 27, and I've got a special guest joining me today. Chris is unable to come on for personal reasons, but I have got a returning guest for his third appearance on Football, then and now, episode 27. It is Spurs fan John Scott on the show today. How are you, John?
I'm well, mate. I'm well. Having a bit of last bit sun down here in the south, so soaking it up whilst it lasts, Stu.
It's been solid up here as well, actually, John. Because last week was a washout. You know, we haven't had much of a summer, have we?
When do we ever? Well, not consistently, anyway. Eh?
No, we should have gone abroad. I should have gone abroad for a second time. I was away in June. But I'm going to do on this day in football. Obviously, it's Chris's segment, but I'm going to do one because on this day, John, in September the 18th, 1991, Liverpool came back after the European ban. It was 1991 in a UEFA Cup tie against Yarsi Larty, a Finnish side, and they won 6-1. Obviously, we've spoken previously, me and Chris, about European ban and you know how it affected the clubs, especially Everton. But yeah, 5-6 years of no English teams, British teams in the tournaments.
Yes. Do you know what? I was trying to think back to when the last time that may have happened, but I can't actually remember. I guess, did Chelsea get something, or was they? I think they were still in it. I think even though they had their ban, I think they were still in it. So, yeah, good bit of facts there, Stu. I love a bit of history. You know, you always throw it on me. I never know what your team up to. So, I had absolutely zero answers there to give back, mate.
Normally, I don't do it if Chris isn't here, but I thought I'll do it. We'll do the segment. I know he wants me to do it. So, yeah, there was another one about Dundee playing a tie, actually. I think it was early 90s. And the attendance for it was like 200 odd people. Jeez. So, yeah, I know it's that, but I went with this. But, yeah, a lot of the Everton fans weren't aggrieved. Obviously, the links with Liverpool and the ban, you know, there was families involved, wasn't there, and all that sort of stuff. You know, unfortunately for us, I think we would have won. I think we might have won the European Cup with that team when we were, you know, due to go into the European Cup, John. But you know, just one of them things. But I'd like to move on as well. There's plenty to talk about today. Obviously, over the weekend, how did you feel the North London derby was for you? Your Spurs, of course. And when you were last on, you're obviously speaking about Ange and, you know, how he was going to do things, how they were going to play, how the team were going to play, you know, Solanke signing. Yeah, just your thoughts on this past weekend's game.
Yes, it's nice, isn't it, when you talk before the season starts, Stu? There's so much promise, so much positivity. And then, you know, the season begins, but we're only like 4 games in, and you know, like people are already, you know, jumping to a lot of things at the moment. Listen, for me, I'm on the side of the Spurs camp where I'm still very much behind the manager. I know there hasn't been a great start, but then I was looking at some, not that I use statistics all the time, but Poch's first season was the same sort of start, 4 points, didn't look great, and then we ended up finishing third. So it's not over until it's over, sort of thing. I think, to be honest with you, I have to admit, Stu, even as a Spurs fan, Arsenal at the moment, they're the better team. They are genuinely the better team. We lost 1-0 through really one big mistake that cost us a lot, which was Romero and Vicario really not having a bit of a shaky game. But really, overall, would I have expected anything too less? Not really. You know, I'll be totally down to earth with you. Obviously, it's a big game. You want to beat your rivals. We did dominate possession. But to be honest with you, we didn't really have a clear-cut chance, if I'm being totally fair. I think we had a lot of possession. We just didn't really come up with much. But I'm still Ange at the moment. I'm still with him. And he doubled down after the game as well in the interview, saying he always wins something in his second season. That's caused a bit of a shake-up in the media world, you know, and then he got asked about it recently as well. and he sort of again explained why he said that, which, you know, he just said he was being honest, which I guess, you know, he is in a way. Now, whether he truly believes that, Stu, I'm not sure, but I think he's doing it because he wants the players to start believing. I think he's trying to build that up. So yeah, weren't a great game, but I have to be honest, Arsenal are looking very good this season. They didn't have two of their best players either. I should point that out, and they still looked pretty comfortable.
Arguably as well, talking about the Gunners, if Rice wasn't sent off against Brighton, they probably have a 100% record. I think they would have gone on to win that game. I mean, they did well coming out of it with a point in the end. Going back to your Spurs, Jamie O'Hara was a bit critical of Brennan Johnson and Solanke. I thought it was a bit unjust, but it's your club, it's your team. You know, you watch all the games. Do you think it isn't just them copping for the stick of Jamie O'Hara, who splits opinion? I know a lot of people who aren't a fan of Jamie O'Hara and his delivery at times. Do you think it was unjust that them two players got singled out?
Well, I definitely do with Solanke, because he's just come back off of an injury. So, again, it's against Arsenal, arguably the best backline in the Premier League. So he's always going to be up against it. I think we need to judge Solanke over the next 6-8 games to see, you know, if he's worth what we've paid for. I think playing against Arsenal, you know, he's only played it against Leicester before that, and then he got injured. So, to be honest with you, the what he was provided with on the day wasn't a lot. So it was, you know, he had that one chance, and that was about it. Brennan Johnson, I do want to come out and say this much. The stick he got online was absolutely ridiculous and so unjust. I hate any time that happens. He's been getting it a lot. I know he literally deactivated his social on Instagram because of the flood of ridiculous stuff coming in. So first of all, I hate that. I don't think any player deserves that kind of abuse. But for me, it's not just on Brennan Johnson. I think there's a lot of underachieving players at the moment. Like Maddison, is he up to par? Not really for me. We've got Bentancur in there. The thing is, you know as well as me, Stu, Son, for instance, very quiet in that game. What it takes is for a couple of these players to have good, solid games, and then it seems to spread throughout the team. But at the moment, we don't really have even just one player firing on all cylinders at the moment. Like, you could make a big argument at the minute. The only guy really is Mickey van der Ven, you know, because he's without him, we really struggle because of his pace backwards and forwards. The real key question is, Stu, and I'll throw it back to you here, because from someone else who isn't a Spurs fan, I suppose the biggest thing I hear at the moment is about Ange is, will he ever drop that high line? And if he did drop that high line, would it benefit him and us to do that? Or do you think he's going to be, he's almost like backed himself into a corner of saying, this is my philosophy, I ain't budging for nothing? What do you think on that?
The man's headstrong, John. I think in certain games he is going to have to drop it, but he's sticking to his guns. He's sticking to his principles. He wants to play that way. We all know you play with a high line. Again, you destroyed us the other week. You did. Yeah. We've scored goals against other teams as bad as we've been. We didn't get nothing. You know, you outplayed us the other week. So it does work in certain games. I think he does need to adapt, but he won't take any notice of pressure online. He'll do what he needs to do, that man. You know, he's a strong man, isn't he? Strong-willed, which you need. Being the boss. I think it'll be all right for you guys. I think he's trying to try things. You've got new players. It's very, very early days. Do you know what I mean? A couple of wins, you'll be right back up there, I think.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, and I'm definitely not of the opinion like Jamie O'Hara and all the rest of it have been sort of calling for his head already. I think what they Spurs fans got to remember, the ones that say he's only won Mickey Mouse leagues and all the rest of it, is that we've gone through Conte, who was considered in his prime when we got him, because he'd just come off of winning the league with Inter again. We had Jose Mourinho before that. So we've gone through those high-level managers, and to be honest with you, we played awful football, and I was willing to accept that as long as it would give us a trophy. Guess what? We still come up empty-handed. So just because Ange doesn't come from a place like they do, it doesn't mean that's going to solve the whole thing for Tottenham for me.
definitely. I'm just looking at the table here. I've had it up for quite a bit. I tell you what's a start for Forest? I
Yeah,
would
yeah, they're
I
looking
would
good,
not
mate.
have had Forest up there. Fantastic win on the weekend. Murillo marshalled that defence, and it wasn't one of them where they sat back for the entirety of the game. A lot of teams go to Anfield. Everton are going to go there and sit back, you know full well, especially if Dyche is still the manager. They went and had a go, and their first win there since 1969. Fantastic start for them. I'm just looking through Brentford, not too bad as well. You know, these guys who were down there with us, weren't they? And I know it's early days, but you know, if you can get a bit of confidence early on, what a start for Forest, John.
Yeah, it is, and yeah, I can imagine you was pretty happy with that one as well, there, Stu. Being that Forest did come up, but to be honest with you, I mean, totally unexpected. You know, I was watching the highlights, and to be honest, they were in the game. You know, it weren't like it was like a last bit sort of win. I think like they were in it enough. I thought, you know, at the very least they deserved a draw anyway. So the fact they went on and won away at Anfield is a massive result for them. What they've got to do now is make sure they win against the teams around them as well. That's the problem, because it's a bit like, you know, you sort of see these teams, for instance, winning the week before, and you think that's the big crunch game, but then they play another game, and all of a sudden, you know, it's made up nothing for the result they got earlier in the week. So hopefully Forest keep up with it. You know, good to see them up there.
Nuno as well. You know, I was looking at the bench beforehand. I never had Forest going there and winning. I thought Liverpool were going to kick
I don't think
on.
anyone did.
They've had a great start, but he's got a strong bench there. You know, Hudson-Odoi was on there. He brought him on. He got a goal subsequently. They've got quite a strong team. You know, if you can keep going, there could be a surprise package this year where they could possibly push for Europe. You never know, do you, with the Premier League?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, no, you never know. There's always one team at least every season that surprises you, and they may be it. You know, they've been there for a while now in this Premier League, so yeah, looks like it could be a full-time stay.
Eddie Howe was on the ropes, spoke about it weeks ago, said he could be on his way out if it didn't happen, didn't work. It seems to me, you know, you got a fit Harvey Barnes now. He's looking electric. He's looking fantastic. Isak, you know, it seems to me they've got over the injury problems. Anthony Gordon looked threatening in the game on the weekend as well. They've had a solid start, haven't they, Newcastle? Because I wrote them off. I didn't think they'd be up there.
Yeah, they've got the momentum at the minute. That's the thing with them. They've got a lot of momentum behind them, and I think the whole England talk as well probably didn't help before the season started about Eddie Howe. But he's proven himself again. You know, he's sticking in there. Lots of debate whether he's going to be the one that takes them where they really want to get to ultimately. But I think they're doing it the right way. I've always said this. I think Newcastle are doing it the more organic way. Unlike Manchester City when they first sort of came in and splashed money here, there, and everywhere, I think they've been a bit more sensible, and they do look a very. I think just momentum with them helps a lot. Whether the whole season is going to be like that is another question. But at the moment, you know, good for him.
Lewis Young up in Scotland, hey, and then a few more comments from Lewis. I'll just pull them up before we get on to Hollywood and Miami meeting in Birmingham the other evening, because I know you wanted to speak about that. Good result for Man U last night. Yeah, 7-0. I was like, looked at how we did, and I was just like, yeah, 7-0. Yeah, very good win last night, Lewis. And yeah, I think the pressure's still on Ten Hag, though. The pressure's still on there. Definitely.
The cups may save Ten Hag yet again. You know, I think it's just
for most other clubs,
I'm crying out.
The cups are fine. I say this to my Man United mates all the time. You guys want Premier Leagues, you want Champions Leagues, and for any other club within reason, the cups are fine. They're great, but not for Man United, not with the history, unfortunately for him.
Yep.
And then we're going to move on to Monday evening. We'll come back. We'll come back to City and Arsenal in a minute. We'll preview that after. Yeah, John, 3-1 Birmingham, but Tom Brady was in attendance and he invited David Beckham, obviously involved with Birmingham, Tom Brady. So, yeah, just your thoughts on Monday evening.
I thought, first and foremost, good shot there that you picked, Ax. That's exactly what stayed in my mind since that game, really. The amount of times the camera panning in on them two. It was incredible. More of them than the game. But to be honest with you, Stu, what a great advert in a way for essentially, the third tier down, League One at the moment with us. And you think, what an advert for English football that we've got this going on. And I know, yes, it's a bit Hollywood, whether it's completely organic is another thing. But you've got Wrexham down there. Obviously, you've got the blitz of the Disney that's been behind them for a while now. You've got Birmingham that are basically going to spend incredible sums of money. I personally think too much money for League One. I don't really know that they need to spend that money in that league to be able to get out of it. I think they could probably spend a quarter of it and do pretty well on it. I was listening to the Peterborough chairman who goes on TalkSport a lot. Forget his name now. What is his name?
Darren McAntony.
That's the fella. And he was saying that Peterborough were the second top biggest spenders in that league, coming in at just under, I think it was about 2.4, 2.6. And you compare, and that was big sums for that league. But you compare it to Birmingham, just around that 24, 26 million mark. It's insane, Stu. I mean, I've seen Premier League mid-table teams not spend that sort of money sometimes. So it's a lot of cash they've put in. But the glitz, the glamour, I suppose, is what it was all about, Stu, on the day. Like I said, I did go and watch Wrexham in the pre-season because I wanted to see what it was about. It did remind me of the Man United of the lower leagues, that we were getting a lot of tourists, fans in along with the locals, and they were telling me about that. But overall, it's building that brand up. And unfortunately, whether we like it or not, Stu, football these days is just as much a business, and that's what they're doing. But yeah, great advert, and you've got some real competition in that league. I mean, I was looking at, you look at what Peterborough do every year. They always have great amounts of young quality in there. You've got Charlton that are coming back up as well with Nathan Jones. So lots of really a very competitive league, I think, this season. But having said that, you'd say Birmingham outright, easily the favourites, and about anything behind them, quite tough.
Wrexham is still top. I know they played the game more. Obviously, some games got cancelled because of international call-ups. I mean, let's have it right here. Birmingham have come down from the Championship. Wrexham were in League Two.
Yeah.
So let's just get a bit of context here. I think, at the end of the day, I think the Wrexham fans would be very happy. If you told them they were on 13 points after 6, what a start. What a start. Yeah. And you're in it for the long haul. We know how long the season is in there. It's amazing. It's amazing. Stockport, they've been with Wrexham every season. They've come through. They look good. And as you say, Charlton, our friend Rich.
He'll be up. Well, funny enough, Birmingham just bought Alfie May, who was just scoring for fun for Charlton last season, and they just literally picked him up for like next to peanuts compared to what they paid everywhere else, and he's been on fire. So yeah, you feel for a lot of the other teams, but like I say, great advert for the English League One, essentially, which is it was a big game the way it was built up. The whole thing, it was like a proper Monday night football game, and I think they had crazy figures as well. Viewing figures for a League One game. So, looking good for that.
Sky Sports Plus has been good too. They're getting at least 20 games each. For all the stuff that gets bandied about Sky and all that, and they've made it competitive. There's been a flash sale recently. You can get the whole lot for £20 a month. Right. Which, for the amount of football we're getting now, John, I think it's priced fairly, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is, it's been something that's been going on the last few years about, how much we pay, especially in this country, for football compared to if you live abroad and, they see everything, including those 3 o'clock games that we don't have access to because they're obviously, covered up in that time, that well protected. But I think there's been this thing about, well, how do we stop piracy? How are we going to stop this from people going on other things to watch these games? Well, the only real way, similar to what boxing are having to do now, just reading about Eddie Hearn and the new Saudi chap that's over, and what they're prepared to do is they're bringing these prices right down on pay-per-views, and they're saying, well, listen, if we can give something that's a bit more affordable, I think people will stop going the illegal route. And I think, to be honest with you, I think that's the only way, and probably the best way, because I'm sure they'll get even more customers doing that anyway. So I'm sure the figures won't be lost too much in that. But yeah, good on them.
Just not to make it about boxing, obviously it's
Go on,
AJ and Dubois on Saturday.
Absolutely, big fight.
1995. You know, if we're talking about pay-per-view prices, box office, all that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
they're going to have to, John. They're going to have to,
Yeah.
because you know they are trying to crack down on this illegal stuff. I know that they, you know, the authorities, FACT, etc. They are aware. You know, more and more people are getting locked up, aren't they, as the days go by? But if they can just bring it down, as you say. I think it should just be under one umbrella as well. You know, you pay a set amount and it's all there. Maybe they can come to some sort of arrangement with that going forward.
Yeah, it is a difficult one, and then, you know, not to throw it on what other sports are doing, but I was listening to Dana White and they were asking him, what are you going to do? Are you going to bring the prices down as well? Because I think they charge in America like $95. It's a lot of money still, you know. It's not like a cheap amount, and then they're wondering why so many people are streaming. But Dana's answer to that was he felt like the authorities, they've got better at it, and they're going to start closing them down. But I don't know. I feel like it's very hard to beat it, because I just think once one closes, another will open. You know, it'll be that all the way. I think with football, though, look, let's be honest, the Premier League in this country is the biggest franchise in the world. They're not doing bad for money. So I feel like Sky Sports, listen, they can afford to bring it down. And really, they've got to think about their own long-term viewing figures, because if you think about it, Stu, I don't know about you, but in my time of having Sky and all the rest of it, it was always Sky had everything that nothing else had. I mean, these days, it's almost the reverse. Streaming TV is caught up so much, you could now say it's actually more viewed than just terrestrial TV. So other than live sports, I think Sky are kind of, you know, they've got to start competing for that market to get customers in. So they need to drop the prices. So I'm not surprised.
Fingers crossed on this going forward that they can make it a bit more competitive. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
You wanted to speak about the new format of the Champions League as well. I'd spoken with Ant about it. He's a Villa fan. Obviously, Villa played last night. They beat Young Boys. But yeah, a bit more. We want to go into a bit more depth about it. And I've got a good graphic here that breaks down how it will be, the original league format. I'll pull it up now.
Go on, mate.
So as you can see there, 36 teams as opposed to the 32 we used to have. They're now playing 8 games, not 6, 4 home, 4 away. And as you can see, the top 8 will qualify. Then 9th and 24th will then go into a playoff round where the 8 will come in then, and you'll have 16 in a knockout phase. And then, as you can see, quarterfinal, semi-final, final. What are your thoughts with it? I like the old format. I like the tried and tested. What do you think? I'm going to put it to you.
Well, first of all, I don't know whether this should be called the Champions League anymore. I feel like when we go back on history, say if this has been in this format for another 10 years, and they say about the past winners of the last 10 years, it'll be a completely different thing. So winning this type of a format compared to the old one, and vice versa, going back to the very traditional days of Nottingham Forest winning them 2 on a bounce, where it was literally, there were no legs, it was one game or you're out. Now we go back to the old days, Stu, when they say Champions League, it was literally just the champions. And I suppose, let's not beat around the bush, Stu. The reason they've really done this is to create extra games that in turn create extra money. So I think we have to get that in. And it's amazing, Stu, that when this was designed, nobody kicked up a stink about playing extra games or anything like that, especially when they heard there was 3 million quid on every game. So it's funny how, you know, all of a sudden congestion isn't too much of a problem as long as we're getting big money. But if you talk about the FA Cup or the League Cup, suddenly there's a big problem. So I want to put that out there first. I'm not a fan of, I'm going to hold out on what I think of the format because I've got to really see it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I've got to sort of watch it. So I'm going to be fair to it and probably give you a better answer at the end of the whole season, whether I think it's been better. But what I will say, what I do dislike is just I feel like we've gone for quantity over quality. So I know they're saying we're going to get more competitive games. The teams only play each other once. I get that. However, I do feel like there are a lot of sides in there that are. I mean, last night, for instance, the Bayern Munich result was quite astonishing. Harry Kane, breaking another record as well. I think he's got 7 goals in his last 2 games now. By the way, with Bayern Munich, and I just feel like that could potentially happen a lot. What I am interested to talk about, Stu, and you've got this amazing graphic up here, and what I am interested to see is this time in the Champions League, we're going to have 6 games before Christmas, and we're going to have 2 games right after Christmas. And what that means is in the window, for the first time ever, the Champions League is going to be going on whilst the transfer window is open. And it will be fascinating to see how that works with registering players, like when they'll be able to do that. And if you're already playing in the Champions League for another club, etc., etc. So I am fascinated to see how that works, especially being open in the window, which we haven't seen before for a time. The other thing I was going to say, Stu, I don't know if you saw it, but did you see the Zlatan promo video that they put out recently, UEFA?
No, we're looking across it, which is weird for me because I'm normally
Yeah,
abreast of everything. I know what's going on, but no, I didn't see it.
It's well worth watching. Let's just say I think they took the mick out of themselves because they sort of hinted at how complicated this format was. And you know what Zlatan's like, he doesn't hold back. And they also, without giving too much away, they do put in a little remark about the Super League. And there's a little punt in there from Zlatan about it, which is quite interesting. So I liked that. So it's well, if you haven't seen it, go on YouTube. I'm sure it's there somewhere. Go and have a watch of it. But it's quite long-winded, but it's basically them breaking down the format, which, I mean, it's going to take a bit of time to get used to. Stu, what about you? What do you think of the format? I mean, I don't know if you've played it. Did you say you played it on FM?
Yeah, on FM,
So have I, yeah.
maybe 2 seasons back. I was like, what is this all about?
Yeah.
I thought, have they added something into the game? Because I didn't know anything about it. I've not heard about anything officially.
Some secret cheat code.
I see this great big hulking league. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Have they lost the license or something? Although it had all the Champions League branding, it had all the official logos, yada yada, the font, you name it. I was like, I just don't get it, mate. I think because we're just so used to how it was. But like you said, going back when it used to be a knockout and that was it, maybe they could have gone back to that. Maybe I just think it's too prolonged. And these 2 games after the Christmas time is ridiculous. If they just knocked some of the internationals on the head, they could play all 8 of these games before Christmas.
I think
there's just so many ways of looking at it. But we'll see. Maybe we will.
What's more worrying, I think, and it's been in the back of the papers a lot recently about Rodri and players striking because of too many games. But this FIFA Club Championship that they're going to play next summer, which they're trying to basically promote like a World Cup, but for clubs. I'll be honest, I don't know how serious clubs are going to take this until it comes on. So I'm not sure what the emphasis is on money. I'm guessing it's going to be big, so perhaps they will. But again, to me, it just seems like too many games. I'll be honest with you. And I'm not saying I'm not sticking up for the players because I know that there's a majority of people that say, you know what, they're only kicking a ball about. They're getting 300 grand a week. What's wrong with you? And I get that. There are people out there slaving away on ridiculous, having to travel into work on a rainy day. I totally get it. But I will say, even from a viewing standpoint, I don't know if I want to see so many games played across a whole. Like, where's the off season if we're having a Club World Cup? Where is it? And I don't know. I think that's the limit for me where I've got to at the moment. But I'll hold that judgment on this new format. But hopefully, I mean, it may work. It is a strange way of doing it, but I'll have to hold out judgment until I see a bit more.
And there again, you've got to go to Prime, who've picked up 17 games.
Gotcha.
Because they've got the extra. Again, we're going back into this argument where we're talking about broadcasting, paying, which I mean, Prime is still competitive for what you get. You know, you pay your $8.99 and you're getting 17 games. Obviously, I don't think they've got the Premier League. After they had it for 3 years and they lost it, so they were looking to what they could go into. But again, you've now got to have a Prime membership. And, you know, if your team are playing in them 17, which I think all the British clubs are, they're going to be on there at some point. It's just mad. It's mad. I could talk about this for a lot longer, but yeah, like you say, let's see how it is. You know, we don't like change, do we?
No, we're always resistant to change, but you know, if it makes sense, if it does become more, you know, entertaining towards the end. My only biggest thing is, like, I know in that graph, you know, you've got a certain amount of teams that won't have to play the extra games if they're, you know, above. So there is like, let's not have to play more games if we can help it mentality, I'm sure, on some of them big teams. But I don't know. I just wonder how it'll all stack up towards the back end of the season when everything's at the business end, how it's going to play out, because more games to me, I'm not sure it's exactly what's needed, you know.
What happens with the 12 teams that don't get into the playoff round? Are they going into Europa League? Is that
I hate that as well. That's another bugbear of mine.
They're in situ here, because normally if you're third, say, you end up going into it, don't you, in the next bit? So it's we're just gonna have to adjust us, I suspect.
Yeah. Same in the Europa as well with Spurs at the moment, and I've been looking at their fixtures. You know, it's very confusing. But yeah, we will see.
Absolutely. And the game of the weekend, we'll be heading to Sunday, 4:30, a huge match. It's first taking on second, and it is Man City versus Arsenal. So how do you think it's going to go?
Well, first of all, it's been a crazy week for Arsenal, given that they played the North London derby, then they're going to Atlanta. I think that's tomorrow, isn't it? So, I mean, they've got a very busy week, and then they go to City. But, of course, they'll have, you know, some players back. I mean, at this point, and it's very early on in the season, so I think it is a good time for Arsenal to go away against Manchester City, personally, because you're not really at the back end of the season. But let's face it, even when Arsenal dropped a couple of points the other week, Stu, the amount of people that said, "Oh, it could be over." It could be over because they dropped 2 points. So everyone is looking so on minimum, you know, almost like they have to get every single point going to win the league this season. Furthermore, I know we're not going to go too much into this one because we could talk about this all day, but the trial of probably a lifetime of the Premier League is going on as we speak. And that's hanging over Manchester City currently. And now every single press conference Pep's going into, he's having to answer those questions, which I think he's going to get more and more, you know, peed off with as that goes on. So I think that's hanging over them a bit. I don't know, mate. I'm going to go for a City win just because they're the home team. I do think City will come up on this, but again, it's going to be a very close game. And what I will say is Arsenal's away record is incredible at the moment. They are on a really good run, so it'll be a tight affair, that's for sure.
I think fans of other team are short-sighted as well. They need a striker. I'm not being funny. I've said various times about Kai Havertz playing false nine, moving around and all that. I think he does a fantastic job. I really do. I think that'd be short-sighted of people. Also, there was no Rice or Odegaard in the North London derby. You know what I mean? I think Thomas Partey's looked good. Partey has looked really good in the middle. Jorginho came in and did very well. Again, City can be caught. They're susceptible at the back. And the way Arsenal play, you know, there's only a few teams that can really, you know, do that and score a lot of goals past them potentially. City aren't great shakes at the back. I don't think Ederson's that good, truth be told. He has his issues at times, just the way they play. They're easy on the eye, don't get me wrong, John. But I think Arsenal could counter them and cause a lot of problems.
I'm going to be fascinated to see how Haaland, on his great form at the minute, does against that defence. You know, arguably the best defence at the minute. That'll be a great, you know, mark to see how good he is against them and how good they are, vice versa. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, I mean, it'll be a big spectacle. It's happening early, but a lot of fans are saying Arsenal have got to go there. They can't not come away with at least a point. But I don't believe that personally. I think they can still, even if they lose this, it's not over by a million miles. There's so much that can happen in a season, especially with all these games going on. Personally,
33 games, John.
yeah, I mean, it's stupid to be
Let's
talking
just
about it's
calm
over
down
now.
here.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
crazy. It's
yeah.
crazy. And City are prone to slipping up.
Hmm.
They seem to kick on around Christmas, January. Normally,
Hmm.
there's been some seasons where they lost 3 or 4 leading
Yeah.
into Christmas. But I mean,
Hmm.
Pep is so battle tested. But I
Hmm.
think I'm gonna go for an Arsenal win.
Yeah, no, he's going away. Yeah,
I think they're going to come away with it.
Hmm.
I think they've dropped points against Brighton. Arteta's got the new deal signed and sealed.
Hmm.
You know what was funny though? Foden's still not getting in.
Yeah.
And I know we played the tournament in the summer.
Hmm.
I'm not understanding it. Gundogan was straight back in. A lot of people didn't see that coming on the weekend. What do you think with Foden? Do you think because he's played a lot of football and he's just
I just think Pep's playing it. He does this like at the start of the seasons. He does mess about with his team a lot. He does tinker about at the start, and everyone says, "Oh, where's the weakness this year?" Last year it was because Kevin De Bruyne was out for a long period of time, and everyone was saying, they're going to miss him too much and etc. But in the end, when it comes to the business end, there's no one better than Pep to finish it off, and I think he's got so much experience of that now. I mean, in a way, Gundogan. I mean, it's a smart decision to bring him back because he knows exactly what's expected from Pep, and he can still put in a good shift. So they've done a good bit of business there on their part. But yeah, the big thing for me on all this is going to be, well, what happens after the trial, and if there is a huge point, and you'll know better than anyone else, Stu, being an Everton fan, what that can do to you. So if you guys were up for how many counts it was compared to how many they find now, even if it's just a quarter of 115 that they find, I think that's got to be substantially pretty bad on the points tally that they'll lose, right?
My City mate Dan, he was on the show in March. He came on. 101 of them charges aren't going to stick.
Right.
He said they're going to face 14. I don't know where he's got that.
Even 14 though.
I know. How many did we have? Combine what we had, what Leicester had, what Forest had. It still wasn't 14.
Yeah.
I tell you what though, Leicester, the relegation saved them.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. What a loophole.
But surely 14 of these charges, something's going to happen. What do you think? Or are they going to just throw it away? Are they going to get some big wig lawyer and just get away with it? I worry.
If they find a lawyer that can get out of them, I want to know who that is. But frankly, I mean, I don't see them getting out of all of them. I mean, there's just too many. And I think as well, the FA, they've got a little bit of egg on their face with what happened with Leicester, with that loophole from them getting a particular legal team. So I think they're gonna make a real example out of this if they can. And people saying, they won't relegate them and everything else. The thing is, what you've got to remember, I feel like how can if it's matched and consistent with what happened with you guys, I don't see how they can't do the same and more with Manchester City. Frankly, that would be a total unjust and unfair. And this has been going on. I think this goes back to 2009. I mean, that's a long time, Stu. And this goes back to payments made to Mancini under, supposed sponsorships that weren't supposed and allegations of that. So a lot has got to be going through. It's just disappointing we're not really going to be inside. We don't get to hear anything until after. So no one's really going to know until after. But what I would say is Pep Guardiola, when he was asked about this a couple of years ago, when all this was circling, he was asked and he said, listen, as far as I'm concerned, nothing done, and I would never remain at the club if there was. I wonder, out of all this, if it did and something does stick, whether he'll be a man of his word and say, no, I can no longer be here, because there's no way he's going to play in the Championship if that was to happen in my book, quite frankly.
They're so smug about it. And I'm not knocking them as a team. I love watching City.
No. You
and
can't.
I love Pep. But there's a smugness to their fans, and they truly believe they're going to get away with it. And it does annoy me. It does annoy me. You know, I just think because we went through it last year. You know, I had it firsthand, and you know, we did everything we could. We had Mr. Silk involved. You know, he was a bigwig guy in law and what have you, and we still came out. You know, and we stayed up. I know all that. There's just got to be a bit of coherence with it, John. You know, they can't be treated any differently because they've been so successful for the last 13, 14 years. It's a joke.
Yeah.
It's a joke.
And also, you know, it would require trophies removed off their name as well, I believe, and stuff like that. And if you go back to, and I'm old enough to remember as much as you do, the Italian days of Juventus, you remember that Italian clubs have stars above their badge, and that represents 10 years worth of trophies. Well, Juventus were up to 3, and then all of a sudden they went down to 2 because they got them all removed and they were relegated down, and they had to build themselves back up again. And Juventus, for a long time in that era, were the biggest club in Italy by a million miles. The old lady, they were the ones, but they took a huge hit and they had to come back and build it back again. So it can happen. It's not like we haven't seen it before. And I think, like, to think there's a blanket over them just because they're Manchester City would be naive, in my thinking.
As I say, the team, not a problem. Love watching them. Love watching. They've been great for the league, but this legal stuff that they think they can get out of and they can tie everybody else up in knots and get away with it is a nonsense. It's a nonsense. I didn't want to make it about Everton.
No, go on, mate.
I've said I want to get your personal opinion. I've said to Chris, we've got a lot of focus on Everton on these episodes sometimes, like bloody hell, we need to come away. But another loss last night. We've got Leicester away, you know, as well as I do. You know, they drew with you guys at the King Power. You know, they really came at you in the second half. Yeah. What do you think for Sean Dyche now on the outside looking in, you being a Spurs fan? What do you think would be best for us as a club, Everton, going forward? What would you do if you were in charge?
Yes, every time I look at you guys, I'm thinking they're 2 up. They've done it. And then all of a sudden 3-2 at the end of a game, you know, one against Bournemouth and then the other week. And then obviously what happened last night, you're just like, you got to think, like, when you're 2 up and you lose, it's the way you're losing, I think, that's going to hit the team hard. Because if you're losing 1-0 here, 2-0 there, but it's that fact that you're on the front foot and it's all positive and it's looking rosy, and then all of a sudden to have the other team come back 3-2, when that happens a couple of times, especially back to back, that's psychologically quite damaging. And you think for Sean Dyche, like, how many speeches is he going to be able to give to get that momentum up? You know, we know he's a good manager. I've always rated him, and I think if he was a foreign manager, he'd have probably got the Bayern Munich job rather than Company last year, personally, because people overlook him because he's the way he is, and he's a bit of a grumpy bloke, and he tells it like, do you know what I mean? And they have that perception. This is just an old school British, you know, miserable manager. But I think there's more to him than that. And you only got to look at how many years he spent at Burnley on ridiculous budgets doing what he was doing, and he was very practical. That's not to say that change wouldn't be a good thing, but the question I have, Stu, is where'd you go? I mean, I saw a lot of fans asking for David Moyes to come back and save them.
My dad has wanted him back for donkey's years.
Yeah.
And other people want a sexy manager, a young manager. Look, we could have kept old Marco Silva if they were going to do that, and they let him go. Yeah. And he's done a half decent job at Fulham because he's been given the time to do it. I don't know where the hell we're going to go. I've tried to stay off his back, give him time. I've given him a lot more time than other fans. Other fans want him out. Last night, 26% of the ball.
Yes,
you know, you're at home against Southampton. I just say we couldn't string 2 passes together. We just brought it on ourselves.
I think I think that's the thing. It's if the fans have given up in him, that's when you've got to look for another manager. There's nothing you can do at that point. And I suppose it's getting like the thing is, it's such a shame because you look at last season without the points deduction. Where would you have finished? Did you work that out?
We would have been on the
So,
same points as Brighton.
so there
Brighton
you go. You
dropped,
yeah.
didn't they, a little bit, unfortunately, thanks. They've been brilliant. But yeah, we would have been like 12th, 13th without the
Yeah,
deduction.
I honestly, and as I said to you last time I was on this podcast, Stu, I said to you, I was like, I see good things for everything because I was like, last season we had that coming together, us against everyone else because of what was going on. Last season in the stadium as well, particularly this season, I thought everything was going to click. I'm not talking about, anything, top six or anything like that, but you were going to be fairly safe. I still think it's early days. I think the only worrying thing is that it's games against Bournemouth that will probably be in and around that bottom end, and that's what would concern me. I guess all you can do is maybe hold that for another 4 or 5 games, but at some point somebody has to make that tough decision. And you hope that whilst this is going on, Stu, there is somebody in the foreground at Everton's thinking ahead that if we do need to replace him, let's make sure we've got it in plan B right now. Let's not have to sack him and then have to look for somebody and bring some intern manager in for a short time. There's no point in that. And, it could well be David Moyes. I'm not saying it wouldn't be David Moyes. He's got massive attachments to the club. It's one of those things they always say to a manager, don't go back to the club that you managed before, same as players. And, are you going to ruin the reputation you had there? It's that awkwardness sometimes, isn't it?
Look at Howard Kendall. He went back.
Yeah.
He went back twice. He went back twice, and probably the second time, fair enough. But the club was in a right mess the third time. Anyway, there was years of crap going on. So I don't know. Like, he's obviously liaised with Thelwell, the director, on the players. So we've now got players in. That he's obviously asked, and he's linked up with Thelwell, and they've gone for him. And then you've got a new manager coming in, and they're not his players again. We're in this sort of mold. I don't know what the hell they're going to do. And Leicester away ain't going to be easy. They got a good point at Palace on the weekend. I mean, they were winning, weren't they, as well? Vardy looks all right, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's still going. He's still going strong.
I don't like going to the King Power. I think it's always a tough place to go, but we'll see. We'll see. You guys have got Brentford. How do you feel with that? That should be a decent game.
Yeah, I'll be up there for that game. I've got a little bit of premium VIP on that one, so I'm quite looking forward to that. But after last week, I think there'll be a bit of doom and gloom. So he needs this game, but we've got a game tonight as well, I should add, in the cup. So we're away against Coventry. And I wasn't too happy about what I was hearing in the press conference, which was that he was going to make a lot of changes tonight. Now, I know it's Coventry, but I don't care. I want to win a cup, Stu. You know what I mean? I don't care if it's the League Cup. I don't care if it's the FA Cup or Euro. I'll take any of them, quite frankly, because we ain't won a cup for God knows how long. So I want to start taking these cups a bit more serious. And it goes back to the days of Pochettino. He was the same. I know a lot of people say we got to Champions League, but League Cup and FA Cup, he always put a poor team out. And I really dislike it. I just think, don't know why these clubs don't go for it, because we've got a chance. This is the realistically, Spurs ain't winning the league, that's for sure. These cups, if you get a good draw every time, you can win the damn thing. You only got to look at what's happened to England in the Euros last summer. Look at the draw Southgate got all the way to the final. You couldn't have got any better. So, luck can help you. So I would like to see Spurs tonight not change things around too much. If I was him, I'd be playing Solanke up top to get him some goals against Coventry, to get his confidence up, ready for the game against Brentford. But yeah, for me, mate, I'm hoping that the weekend that we bounce back and get the 3 points, and continue on with a steady projection almost. Again, this season, my expectations, I think, to be honest with you, what other teams have spent around us, I'm only looking at top 6 best. I can't say straight top 4 because the top 3, Liverpool, Arsenal, City, we ain't getting past them. And then you've got your likes of Aston Villa. Now, will they have as good a season with the Champions League? They've got to play this season. I'm not sure, but they're doing very well at the minute. You've got Man United. You never know what you're going to get from them every year. Obviously, you've got Chelsea that don't stop spending, but for some reason they don't get up there. And you've got Newcastle. So there's a lot of teams around us who spend a lot of money, and Spurs don't like spending a lot of money. And you know what I mean? So I think you have to be realistic with what you're competing with. And so top 6 for me is about right. But I would love a cup, Stu. I would really love a cup and get a run in it. Just get a run in it. You know?
I can totally understand it. Totally. Will, my mate, sent this a couple of days ago, but this was after they beat Southampton. But he said, Van Nistelrooy in, Tan, Haggard, Sammy out. Give me a shout, mate. Obviously, Van Nistelrooy was managing PSV. He's coming as a coach, of course. So, yeah, he wants Van Nistelrooy in.
He's got an aura about him. I've been watching him on the touchline. It's almost like sometimes he's the main guy, and you watch him around the training ground clips as well. Nistelrooy is almost giving off that impression. You know, he could take that job. You know, he's looking the part, shall we say? I think sometimes you see these coaches come in, these ex-players, and they look like a certain role. That Nistelrooy, to me, Stu, I don't know what you think, but he's looking like more of a role of a manager that's waiting in the wings for this to all go completely wrong for Ten Hag eventually. You know, whether that should have happened already, we don't know. But like, I think he's there in the wings at any point. I think that button could be pressed personally.
Bruno Fernandes was at front the other week. I'm like, I was scratching my head. The United lads I know was scratching their heads, but I think now he's obviously Xerxes has started and stuff like that. But yeah, we'll see with that. We'll see with that. John, just where the viewers and listeners and subscribers can find you on social media, please, before we go.
Yes, absolutely, my friend. So you can get me John hang on, let me get my stuff up here. Yeah, John Scott _media on Instagram. You can find all my stuff there. Some wrestling stuff on there, some interviews and some videos that I've been doing recently. But yeah, thank you for having me again, Stu. Been good chatting to you, my friend.
Thank you for stepping into the breach.
No worries, no worries, no problems, no problems.
You're a star for this. Chris, just personal stuff going on with him. So wish him well, of course. He should be back. But yeah, thank you for coming on again for your third
No worries, my friend.
And we'll see you very, very soon for episode 28. And enjoy your VIP.
I will, mate. I will. Let's get the 3 points. Let's get the 3 points.
I'm jealous of that. I'd love to do that. Take care.
Take care, mate. And you.
See you soon. See you next week for episode 28 of Football Then and Now. Football Then and Now, a fun look at football nostalgia and the modern game intertwined. Join us.